almost anybody can buy a business. And a lot of people are on the sidelines thinking it won't work for them. They can't do it. The hoopla is just too esoteric in the ozone. And I really want to talk to you today, the person who's on the fence thinking about it, but not really there. And this comes from a place of, as I looked and reflected on 5 years helping people buy businesses and reflecting on sort of the range of people that I've helped, it came to me that oftentimes we talk and we get the testimonials of the folks with a bunch of credentials. And sometimes we forget that that's not indicative or necessary for success. I mean, I want to talk about a couple of examples. I helped a 24-year-old coming straight out of college to buy automotive parts, a specialty automotive parts business. I helped a caterer buy an auto body shop. I helped a husband and wife. They work on oil and gas barges that are in the port of Oakland. I helped them buy an HVAC business, and recently I'm working with a 61-year-old person who's coming off of Wall Street, wants to recreate his income in business acquisition, and was able to find a great kind of conservative business within the state that he lives in to acquire and run and get off the Wall Street hamster wheel and really start living life. And so when I think about the 24-year-old in the room with the 61-year-old, they both made the same choice to go try to buy a business. Neither one of them had 100% of the resources they needed at the time they started. But let me just tell you what they did have, because I want to kind of strip it down. Here's the bare minimum what you need. You need about a year or two of time, either part-time, so the caterer and the folks that worked on, the husband and wife that worked on the oil rig, they were working full-time jobs, 9 to 5. So we talked before 9, after 5. But they dedicated 10 hours, 5 hours a week. So they dedicated their night and weekend time, not going bowling, not going to the movies, looking for a business. The 24-year-old, he was able to dedicate 100% of his time for a year. Either one works. So what I'm saying is, a lot of people come in this like, oh, look, this guy went to Harvard. Yes, you don't need any of that. The super cool thing about business acquisition in 2024 that wasn't true when I tried to buy a business in 2016 is that the SBA 7A loan is a loan that's meant for everyday people. In fact, it's administered by all the banks that are down the street from your house. And each U.S. citizen gets $5 million of capacity. Now it's actually higher. It's 10 or 15 million of capacity to acquire businesses. And the people who are buying businesses look just like you. Whatever the thing back in the day that made it harder for you to interview or kept you out of the race or couldn't get into the country club or weren't in the in crowd, none of that matters. None of it at all. In fact, I had a conversation with a potential client the other day, and she was both female and minority. And she was asking me questions that she had got answers from a different deal coach. I won't name who it was. And the stuff was wrong. And instead of me being kind of a formal Elliot, I chose to use my personal, non-familiar, non-formal communication. Like, girl, stop playing around, send the letter of intent. Yes, you can get the deal that you want with all that funky and crazy structure, but you can also lose the deal. The other thing that I was really surprised about was she had heard from one lender and one deal coach that because the business had cash payments, she'd never get it financed. And she was an undergrad scientist and an MBA. I was like, did you really accept a sample size of one to totally curtail your efforts? And she smiled at me because she knew I was calling BS. I've gotten 2 or 3 people who bought construction companies through that process with cash payments. It's not impossible. That lender may not do it, but there's other lenders that will. And I'm going off on this because part of my dedication to this is more than just money. This is personal for me. I toiled for years trying to buy a business in 2016 when Live Oak hadn't even started. They were not doing loans except for physician-led businesses in North Carolina. Let me repeat that. They were only doing acquisition loans for physician-led businesses in North Carolina. Really dental practices, because any bank will lend to a dental practice. They almost never go out of business. So you fast forward 8 years to the current market where Live Oak is doing acquisition loans on everyone, every industry. And you got to realize the struggle and strife that not just I went through, but a lot of people go through now has eased. And in 2024, anyone can go run this play. And what's amazing to me is how diverse the people are that come to me, and how struggling and misinformed they may be at the beginning, but how there's so much good education out here that people get smarter over time, and you can just see it. You can just see it happening. So like wherever you're at, like on your couch, driving somewhere, listening to this on audio, maybe on your work break, you can do it. Now, I'm not going to go Cody Sanchez, Alex Hormozy on you. I'm not all of a sudden going to start telling you all these $1 million, $1 billion things you can do. This is me giving examples of everyday folks that have succeeded that I know are no more prepared than you. It's just your election of how you're going to spend your next 12 months. I said it was personal for me. Why is it personal? Because I'm a minority male playing a game that's typically only been played by certain folks. But my body of business is so diverse that it's beautiful seeing all these different kinds of people in the mix, including the guys that have always been in the mix. And I love it. It just feeds me. And what I mean by feeds me is when these folks come and don't have what they need to close, and through either the pre-LOI program that I have or the class that I'm offering, or kind of ad hoc support, because I'll help in asynchronous ways, Loom videos for people who really need help. And all of a sudden they get to the point where they're in striking distance and they actually do the darn thing. And I really wanted to just bring this to you because I think when that young lady called me last week, it just made me realize that she was getting bad information. And what if instead of them saying, hey, you can't do that deal because of cash payments, what if they told her, oh, you just can't finance that deal? Or even worse, I don't think you're financeable, which I've heard several times. This is not a game where you got to show up with $1 million in the bank to get $1 million loan. And people are going to try to tell you that because they prefer that you have $1 million in the bank, but you don't have to. And if you know anything about me, I am all about going just beast mode at things that matter. And let's talk about what matters. What are we playing this game for? To buy $1 million business, double or triple it, sell it, never have to work again, and set everybody in your family up for a totally different stratosphere of life. That's what success in this is. So when I talk about it and I talk about it being personal, it is because these people's life has changed as they've gotten through this process. And I really want to just make sure that people recognize that it takes some gumption, some time, some persistence, because there's some BS in this process, and some believability that you can actually get this thing done. One of my business partners, one of my first mentors, told me when I was at business school, like, you know enough to get this done. You just don't believe you know enough. And I didn't understand him at the time. I was 28. I get it now. He was saying all the tools were out here. You just have to have the conviction. So if I can do anything for you today, I want to put a battery in your back. Yeah, I said it. I want to put a battery in your back. Why? Because I'm seeing any and everybody get deals done. It's almost no restriction on where you start from. It's just the gumption to get it done. So if you want to change the next 12 months of your life, study up on buying a business. And here's the beautiful thing. I challenge you to take the first step that actually has no risk. Now, most of us think about the whole risk profile of the whole endeavor. No. What I'm saying is the only way you get to level 10 is you start with level 1. What is level 1? Level 1 is getting on LinkedIn, getting on Twitter, searching for SMB folks, and reading what they're talking about in terms of deals. Or go to the Harvard Business Review Guide to Buying a Small Business or the Stanford Search Fund Guide. Those are more formal places to go. So if you want to read long stuff, that's where you go. Short stuff, Twitter. All you have to do is go read some of the stuff that's out there and see if it still feels like it's for you. That's step 1. And I challenge you to go do step 1. One of the things that I also love about my business is through the pre-LOI program, which is a $2,500 investment that comes off of your QOE. And a lot of people do it to get advice during this sort of pre-LOI period. And a lot of folks realize in that pre-LOI time that buying a business isn't for them. And I used to think that, oh, I'm doing them a disservice. You know, they paid money that they don't get a deal done. But actually, one of my mentors reminded me that, like, paying that amount of money to realize that you don't need to go spend a year and go try to get $1 million loan. Your personality, your family, or whatever is not built for that. That is probably the greatest investment they'll make. So again, take the first step. Anyone can do this. I listed folks at the beginning of this video that have been successful that look like any and everyday people. And what I'm challenging you to do is to consider that you know enough to get this done. And don't be like me at 28 and not just embody that, not just being bold enough to go get it by yourself. I implore you to know that you have enough information and there's enough capital out here to get it done. And if you're kind of sitting around like, hey, I already had the gumption to do something, I really want to change where I'm at, I want to change my life, I implore you to go do an hour worth of research on buying a business. That's the first step.